What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. Today, I'm going to attempt, all right? I'm going to attempt to try to explain to continental Africans and Caribbeans, although I shouldn't have to explain this to Caribbeans. They already know this, right? Because they go through similar things. Plus, they're South Floridians, so they already know, right? I'm going to try to explain to continental Africans, both those who have been here for 20, 30 plus years, and those who want to come here or those who are new here. I want to explain to you guys what African Americans are trying to say in all of its various different ways. Okay? Right? From the FBAs to the Pan-Africans to the Black nationalists, all the different conversations happening, right? Some are very immature, some are mature, you know, but the feeling, the sentiment, all right, that we're all collectively having, right? Let me try my best, right? Since some people, they like the way I articulate things because I make it make sense, right? Because when you're heated and you're passionate about certain things, sometimes you can let your ego take charge, and then the conversation goes to ad hominem attacks. It goes to whataboutisms. It goes to, but he said, but she said. It goes to eggplant measuring and all kind of stuff, right? So let me explain the best way I possibly can for those Africans who are interested in truly, deconstructing the online diaspora wars and the miscommunication that we have. What I need continental Africans to understand, I'm going to try to take my time with this one because I want to be real careful, right? And I want you guys to know I'm coming from a place of love. This is all from love. Understand, this is like brothers sitting in the living room having a conversation, all right? After having all these arguments and fights and shit, right? What I want you guys to understand, and you guys need to comprehend this fully to understand this, I'll make some examples, is that America belongs to African Americans. This is our country. We share this country with white people, European Americans. We also share this country. And when I'm talking about the people who are the progenitors of what we now call America, right? Because this really is just Native American. This is stolen. This is occupied land. All right, let's just keep it real. It's occupied land. All right, but the entity of America was created by force by these Europeans, but built by black people. And also built by some certain Chinese people, right? And certain Japanese people who people forget about, the ones that were brought here earlier. They mixed them up with the ones that's coming now, right? Two different groups, right? But what you got to understand, continental Africans, just like you have a country of Ghana, right? And I've listened to FB, even though they be saying some dumb stuff. I do understand what they're saying, and I'm going to try to explain it to you. You have a country, all right? If you're from Ghana or Nigeria, you both have a country and you have your nation within that country, which is your tribe, right? You know not I know it's not true. Most of y'all don't really know all of your information for your tribe, right? But y'all know enough about your culture and this and that, right? 500 years ago, and I need y'all guys to understand this. Slavery started 500 years ago with the Dutch and the Portuguese in the Congo. Okay? It ended a couple hundred years ago. The last slave ship was found in 1860. I think 1863, 1864, 1860. They recovered it off the coast of South Carolina. The slave ship, right? It was one of the last slave ships brought to the Americas. I think from Nigeria. I forgot what country it came from. Nigeria or Ghana. It was one of them countries. Or in that area, right? And they transported, I think, like, not that many, like 25, something like that. Africans to translate to America to be slaves, right? And that, y'all got to understand that a lot of people, a lot of Africans, African Americans, our families, our lineage have only been here for about 200, sometimes 300 years. Especially if you're North American African. If you're North American African, we are the latest Africans to come from Africa. So we're more closely connected with West Africa than most of the South Africa and the Caribbean, right? That's just true. Just because we are the latest ones to get over here. But what you gotta understand is that America belongs to us. Country created by us. We fought in every single war. You understand? Now keep in mind, we didn't choose America, right? But we still built it. We still participated in every single event that created this country. So you have to respect the African American as an African American, as the starters of America. I'm trying not to use foundational because we always know why I'm not trying to use that. But as the starters of America, we are the starters of America. We are the lifeblood, the veins of America. America is us and we are it. Right? So and you should understand, if you're from Ghana, if you're from Nigeria, from South Africa, you understand your national pride. You also understand your tribal pride. You have these different levels of pride, right? And you would never want anybody to come in your country and disrespect your nation and disrespect your tribe. Okay? Now, what some, and you guys cannot deny that there are a lot of Africans who come to America and undermine the African American in his own country in order to capitulate to the African American's enemy, which is the European American. For all argument's sake, we're going to just keep it plain and cut enemy. Yeah, enemies marry each other. Enemies go to school together. Enemies do a lot of shit together. All right? Hell, in war, enemies used to celebrate Christmas together because they all wanted to celebrate holidays. But then the next day, they go back to fighting again. All right? Shit's complicated. But when you come to America, right, as an African who is not fully knowledgeable about the internal dynamics, and you choose white people, what you did was you came to America and you undermined the African American in his own country, which is disrespectful. And then you chose his enemy over him, which is the white people. So if you are an African and you're a conservative, if you come to this country and just because you don't understand or you can't comprehend the difference between African conservatism and white conservatism, if you think they're the same, that's a lack of knowledge on your point. That's a lack of due diligence on your point. And that means you really don't pay attention to politics, because if you listen to the policies and which he talk about, you would understand that the conservative white man deems you, African, the enemy. You've always been the enemy. The foreign policy America has on African nations is the exact same domestic policy white people have on black people domestically. You got to understand. All right, so if you're an African, you come to America and you start talking shit about African Americans, right? But you don't have no smoke for white people. What you did was you totally disrespected all African Americans in our own country after we fought for the right for you to get here. Because keep in mind, the only reason any African is here is because these Africans who were forced here fought in every war, died, fought wars in states, sacrificed ourselves like the white Jesus that you love in order for you to have a better life here, right? Now imagine this. Imagine this. Imagine I, an African American. Imagine I go to Nigeria or Ghana, and you guys are having issues with your political party. Y'all got your own ops, right? Corrupt politicians that don't care about the people. They only care about their pockets. Imagine me, an African American, goes to your country, and I support the party that's discriminating against you. And that party gives me a few butter biscuits, right? Maybe gives me land that doesn't belong to me. And maybe gives me, allows me to elevate within society just a little bit. What if your government used me as a buffer group in order to say, how come that African American came to Ghana or came to Nigeria and he was able to thrive in this economy? But why is it that the person from Ghana, the person from Nigeria who lives in the same economy and has more advantages because you're native, why can't you take advantage of the opportunities this African American came over and took advantage of? What if I went to South Africa as an African American during apartheid, and I supported the apartheid government, and the apartheid government gave me all this land, and I built my businesses. I'm very successful, right? And I see the shanty towns. What if I came online and I talk shit about all the Africans living in the shanty towns, about how they're crime infested, how they don't have any discipline, they don't have any education, they don't go to school, they're vagabonds. What if I sat from the perch of a pristine European enclave in South Africa and I talk shit about the South Africans and how they're struggling and how their struggle is all their fault? Because the same opportunities that me, the African American, has, as I came there as a foreign African into that country, how come I was able to succeed and how come those locals were not able to succeed? It's because of them, not because of the government. It's because of them. Imagine if I did that. You guys would lose your goddamn minds. Imagine if I went to Nigeria. And then imagine if I went to Nigeria and I went and I shook the hand of Tinubu. And Tinubu gave me a whole bunch of land. And Tinubu hooked me up, right? I'm thriving in Nigeria. I'm doing very, very well. And I'm looking at all these poor Nigerians saying, you know what? African Americans are doing so much better in Nigeria. Look at all of y'all. Y'all poor, y'all broke. Y'all ain't got no job. You got no money. Look at me. I'm driving around this nice car. How come you local Nigerians cannot thrive and uplift yourselves? Because I did. I came here as an immigrant. And I did. How come you can't? How pissed off would the Nigerians be at me? How would I look? What if I went to Ghana and did the same thing? I went to Ghana and I got favoritism. Remember how that Nigerian went to Ghana, right? The Igbo guy, and he just made his own kingdom and shit. Remember how upset you guys were? You know how upset the Ghanaians get when Nigeria come and thrive in their countries? And then one thing happens, they lose their mind, right? Because you're disrespecting the people of the country while undermining them at the same time. That's what Africans do when they come to America. But you don't believe it because when you see America, you think white. You think this is white America. You think America belongs to white people and everybody else are just guests. That's what y'all think. So when y'all come here, you look at the landscape, you think that you're competing with everybody that's not a white male. You guys think that you come here and you're on the same playing field as African Americans. What's really happening is you're coming here after we've done the work and then you're undermining us, undoing the work we did by supporting Republicans, by fighting your brothers and sisters. Because the thing is, you got to understand, we African Americans are on the battlefield here. If you haven't been paying attention, we're still fighting a racist government, a racist group of Europeans. Our ops are still those European Americans. Our ops are still there. And the fight has never stopped. The fight just modified, it changed, it evolves. Just like we went from fighting with spears and swords to fighting with bow and arrows and guns and cannons and machine guns. Now we got drones. It evolves. The war in America has evolved. And you continental Africans, right, need to understand that when you come to America, despite what your TV, all right, the TVs in your countries, the TV says that America's great and wonderful. Come over here. Y'all got lotteries and shit in your countries to where y'all get sponsored to come over here. Y'all get all that shit, right? You got to understand you're entering into a war. And when you get here, you need to pick a side. And that side should be your brothers and sisters, which is us. We are literally on the battlefield fighting a continuous war of attrition with these Europeans so that we can create a safe space for all people. Listen. When black people in America fight, we fight for everybody. The poor white person. Even though that is our enemy for all intents and purposes. Right? The POC, the disrespectful ass POCs. We fight for them too. And we fight for you. Right? So it shouldn't be that hard for continental Africans to have a little bit more appreciation for their brothers and sisters who went through hell so they can come here and get out of the hell they ran from. Huh? America is the most peaceful and prosperous country in the world. As far as like inside, comparatively, right? The most advanced society in the world. What group of people do you think made that happen? Because there are plenty of European white people in Europe. And we all know who rebuilt Europe, the Jamaicans. We all know why Europe looks the way it does. Jamaicans. In America, the rights that most people around the planet don't get to enjoy, the reason why those rights exist is because of us. That's the part y'all don't get. It's us. It's like we bought the house, we built the house, we furnished the house, and you moved in and you said, fuck us. How would that make you feel? And in real life, African Americans have welcomed Africans into their communities. There's no problem in the real world. Now, are kids mean? Yes, they talk trash about each other, right? They joke. It's something that we do. Igbos do it. It's traditional, and we got it honestly, didn't we? Us African Americans got shit talking honestly from the Igbos, because y'all have a whole tradition of that. But it seems like, we get lost in translation when y'all come here and y'all encounter the war-torn African American that's been cultivated over centuries of battle. We are warriors incarnate. We are just warriors, right? So we do warrior shit, like talk shit for fun. We literally talk shit for fun. And we do this to counterbalance all the shit that's been talked about us, not for fun, by those white people that mean to belittle us. So we turn that shit around and empower ourselves. We make games about it. We make lemonade with lemons. You get what I'm saying? And so the African American is trying to tell you Africans, right? Hey, come over here, no problem. But listen, you need to be over here. This is the side of the battlefield you need to be on. And you are black. All right? Now, a lot of African Americans, who are used to just being called black, we call ourselves that, or African American, because we don't know exactly where we come from in Africa. I mean, we know, most people don't know where they come from. You ask a white person in America where they come from in Europe. They don't know. Ask a Chinese person whose family been here for generations. Ask them where they're from in China. They don't know. America is unique because most of the people whose family's been here for generations, generation after generation, you lose information. It degrades, just like analog and digital video. At some point, it degrades. Here's an example I'm pretty sure you can see. Y'all know that. Y'all know how, O'Shea Duke Jackson, every time he thinks he hit a point in his video, you see the part to go, ooh, like that little joning thing where all the people go like that. You know what I'm saying? Well, that video, when it first came out, it looks crisp and clean. But if you notice, people who use it now, because it's a digital asset, it looks grainy. It's starting to lose some of its data because it's being used over and over. Just because it's online don't mean it's going to stay 4K. Things degrade, right? So just like that, knowledge degrade. Most continent second generation Africans who come to America, they don't know their language fluently. Some of them can't even speak their own traditional languages. Some of them can't cook their traditional foods. Some of them can't find their traditional ingredients. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of people, when they move to America over the generations, they start to lose some of the culture that they came from because they're picking up a culture of a place that they're at, right? Because you're doing different things in a different country with different people, right? So if a continental African, first, second, third generation Africans can understand that, I need you guys to understand what happens when you multiply that by 500 years. And you should be impressed at the amount of African culture we've been able to maintain over that amount of time, especially based off how you guys are already complaining in the West and in the UK and Canada that you guys, your first and your second generations, are already losing a lot of the culture that you came from. So you should be able to understand that. So you should be impressed that we remember that. Also, another thing, it's insulting that a lot of you Africans, when getting mad at us for various reasons, you use slavery as a weapon against us. You call us slave Africans. You mock us with our last names, right? You mock the fact that we were enslaved. Now, how do you think that would make us feel if you're mocking the most horrific event in human history to get back at us because somebody said something to piss you off? How do you think that would make us feel after you mock us for being enslaved? Keep in mind, you got to remember, the only reason a lot of you guys didn't come over here, right, with us, because you got lucky. That's it. You just got lucky, right? But you guys were colonized. At least you were able to stay home, right? Now, you guys also mock us for having European blood in us. But did you forget that while we were enslaved for that 500 years, you were colonized for that 500 years? Do you think the white man was not raping women in Africa? You don't think you have that same European DNA in your body, that 13, 20%? I challenge you to do your DNA. you will find, and studies have shown, that West and Central Africans have pretty much the same genetic pattern as an African American. Because the only difference between an African American and a West African right now is geographical location. Because just like the white man went to West Africa and shuffled you guys around from kingdom to kingdom, nation to nation, raped the women, right? And had offspring and left them there, just like they did that, you guys are mixed just like us. That's why our DNA match. That's why, despite the European that you see in African Americans, y'all have the same European. It's just distributed a little bit more because y'all still there. But trust and believe, it's all there. It's all there. And also, you guys volunteer white Western names to capitulate to whiteness because it makes them feel comfortable because they can't say your traditional names. Don't tell me you're not doing it. So we may have a last name forced upon us, right? But you guys purposely adopt a white name to capitulate to whiteness. So you can't call us slaves. You can't make fun of our slave names when you grab your own slave name on purpose. Every one of y'all got a white name in there, one of your middle names or something. You do something just so the white person can say your name when you come to the West. Or you shorten up your names, or you make it more palatable for those non-lip having Europeans. A lot of y'all don't sit there and have. Now, this is very few y'all, because most of y'all are pretty proud of your names. But there are some that won't even say their real name because they're ashamed, right? That's an issue. So if you can understand where I'm coming from as an African American, right? You got to understand that, you guys have, in fact, on some occasions, have been disrespecting us. You can't lie and say that your parents didn't tell you not to mess with us. Don't tell us that you guys, you Africans, have not participated in the disrespect of the African Americans. You can't say you have not. You cannot say you have not. Now, it hasn't been as vile as the POCs and whites, right? But you cannot say that you have not participated in your portion of the diaspora wars. Now, y'all know all the time I talk about my African Americans and how we participate in the diaspora wars. Like, one thing I don't like about how what FBA is doing is you cannot keep throwing in the face, right, of Africans, right? And I've said this obviously, but you can't keep throwing in the face of Africans that we did this, we did that. You should be grateful. But the thing is, if you really did it in earnest, right, you're not going to keep throwing that in somebody's face. You ever had somebody do you a favor, and then they do something for you nice, and then they keep throwing that shit in your goddamn face every 5 minutes? It gets annoying after a while. It makes it so the other person don't ever want to come to you for anything or won't accept anything from you because you just continue to throw it in their face. I don't like how FBA continues to throw in your face, right, all the accomplishments that we have, accomplished, and with the intention of trying to make you look lesser or make you look like you are subservient to that thing. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm saying it here in a way that you can understand, because a lot of people don't understand. But and we all should be learning about each other's and plights and histories, right? So that is part of it. But at the same time, you know what I mean. Like, especially FBA, like, they're not even knowledgeable of what African Americans have done. Yet they just remember certain things and they use that to try to fight or attack Continental Africa. I don't like that. I don't like how African Americans try to act like they're premium Negroes, like they're special or something. As an African American, I'm no more special than any other African. I'm not a premium nigga. No African American is a premium nigga. None of us. Every African has the capability of doing everything an African American has ever done in history if given the opportunity, chance, or forced to do so. That's the power of being black. It wouldn't have mattered what combination of African came to the Americas. We would have did the same shit. And I know that. So I don't look at myself as better just because we went through a certain thing. And as an African American, I wish FBA would recognize that Caribbeans also went through slavery, and their slavery was longer than ours. And that the Brazilian Africans, who should be the center of all Africans outside of Africa, they've been through slavery much longer than Caribbeans and us. So we shouldn't measure who got beat up the worst by the European in his cannon and gun. Who got enslaved worse. That makes no sense. Those are wasteful conversations. Right? So I don't like it when FBA does that. Act like Afro-Caribbeans, Afro-Latinos didn't have the same goddamn terrible time and didn't fight vehemently to free themselves. Because we all have. All of us. I don't like how African Americans act like Africans just sold their own into slavery. Because that's not true. They didn't. And I don't like it how FBA pretends like white people just pulled up in a cart and some Africans just threw their own brothers and sisters in there and say, y'all can have these niggas. I don't like that. Because that's being lazy with history. That's being lazy for the sake of arguments to bolster your ego and satiate your temporary need to own an African. All right? Instead of doing research and finding out it was much more complicated and that Arabs had a lot to do with it. White people and Arabs uniting. Islam and Christianity attacked us at the same time. While we were fighting those Europeans on the coastline, we was also fighting a massive caliphate in the center of Africa at the same time. Our great African nation just couldn't handle the pressure. We collapsed. Right? But, that's history. And that happens when you become complacent. When you fight internally or when people take advantage of your internal battles between nations. Right? But I need African content creators to understand that you cannot come to America and talk shit about the African American. You can't. That's disrespectful. You cannot live and thrive in America and talk shit about the African American. Now, you can talk about shit about FBA, yeah. Right? But make sure you concentrate on them individuals and you treat them as individuals or individual group and don't mire the entire community because of that. Because you're being disrespectful, ungrateful. Imagine, your ungrateful children who you feed, clothe, and house, and you struggle your whole life for, just for them to disrespect you, when they get their first paycheck at their little part-time job. And another thing you Africans need to stop doing. You guys need to stop thinking that you're doing better than us in America and using that as a weapon against us. Stop thinking that you immigrants come to America and you do better than African Americans, therefore you're superior black Negro. You're a superior African. You're a better African. Stop thinking that because you're comparing apples to oranges. You cannot compare any upper class, because any African that can come to America and establish themselves, they're most definitely upper class in America or on a global scale. You can't compare your top 10% to our top 10%. You can't compare your top 10% to our, regular everyday 9-to-5. You can't do that. And all of you Africans, when arguing with FBA online, do that. You say, "Oh, Africans we're the most highly educated. We're this and that. We're that." No. If you want to do proper comparison, you compare your top 10% to our top 10%. And I'm not trying to measure no eggplants here. I'm just being factual. If you compare your top 10%, all your African top 10%, to African Americans' top 10%, it doesn't come close. You do not compete with us. It's not a competition. Nowhere near. And that's just not me talking shit. Keep in mind. These are truths. These are facts. So that argument is null and void because our top 10% is doing extremely better than your top 10%. Okay? What you can compare is your everyday 9-to-5ers to our everyday 9-to-5ers. And like I said, I'm not talking shit. I really am not. I'm just stating a fact. But if you compare your 9-to-5ers to our 9-to-5ers, meaning all your respective countries, the people, the everyday 9-to-5ers versus our everyday 9-to-5ers, Africans, they don't come close. We're still doing better by a large margin. Obviously. So that is an unfair comparison. That all that does when you guys do, immigrants are doing better than that, all you're doing is creating a false sense of superiority. You're creating something that's not real in order to win an argument. And there's a lot of African Americans that don't even put it into perspective that, damn, that is the case. Well, how are you doing better than us? All they see is these Africans, are doing good and we're not, and that's as far as they can go. That's FBA. But in fact, if you compare apples to apples, no one, and this is not just you African people, this is globally. You got to understand, African Americans are very successful, is a very successful ethnic group. Despite the propaganda, there's a lot of propaganda. That's why I never understood when people talk shit about us. It's like, you do know who we are, right? You do know who we are. We are 13% of America. America is only 5% of the global population. And we are the most influential ethnic group on the planet by far. And we didn't have to rape, murder, or kill anybody to do it. This is just us. We're also the richest. Right? Our ethnic group, okay, our ethnic group of African Americans are richer than most European nations and most African nations. Just our ethnic group. So when you guys compare us, understand, you're not comparing all of America to all of Ghana. You're not comparing all of America to all of South Africa. You're not comparing all of America to Nigeria. You're not comparing all of America to Ethiopia. You're comparing 13% ethnic group of America to entire nations. And we are still, I'm not trying to talk shit, but I'm saying we still, imagine that. You're such a successful group of people that you get compared to nations and nobody even questions it. Whole countries. You can't compare African Americans' accomplishments to a whole Chinese nation when they go to Africa and do shit and develop and build. You can't compare African Americans who operate as individuals in countries to whole nations that got governments backing them. You can't do that, but y'all do that. All right, so that's an issue. We're having a lot of conversations and none of it is right. Like, all the arguments are not sitting on the same playing field, so none of it makes sense and a lot of wasted communication happening. Now, with that being said, Africans on the continent are much richer than they know, right? Much richer than they know, but they cannot or don't have the ability to utilize their assets and resources because of the government, right? And continental Africans have the capability of being just as rich, if not richer, because of their resources and geographical location than any African American if they were to pick up the mentality or the work ethic of the African American in its complete and totality. That's why we're a good combination. Because we have to admit that when it comes to business, not all Africans are good at utilizing their resources to benefit themselves fully, right? Because they don't have the education. No one's teaching them how to do it. Because the people who have the knowledge to teach them how to do it, they're too busy scamming for their own personal greed. The potential in Africa is ridiculous. Because I see when I'm there, I see the geniuses just walking around. Y'all just doesn't have y'all not being given the opportunity to nurture that genius, right? And that's the issue. And those who do get the opportunity, they take the opportunity and they thrive and they excel, right? And you guys take that outlier example and you measure that against all African Americans within the system of America. That's not fair, right? So we just need you guys to understand, have more appreciation for African Americans, the things that we've done, our accomplishments, and what we're still doing right now. You got to. You can't compete with us. I'm not saying you don't have the ability to compete with us. What I'm saying is you shouldn't be competing with us. We all have the same collective enemy because we're all speaking the same language. That should be an indicator of who the enemy is, right? That should legitimately be the indicator of who the enemy is. Latinos know who their enemy is because they speak in their language. The Francophone Africans know who their enemy is because they speak in their language. If you speak in a language that's not an African language right now, then you should be able to clearly identify who the enemy is. And that enemy is not an African. All of us have exceeded at different portions of time. There was a time where Ghana, right, was fighting multiple European countries on behalf of Africans. There was a time where Nigerian kingdoms was fighting multiple Europeans on behalf of Africans. There are more Africans who fought against the transatlantic slave trade than there were who participated in it. I think it would be important and I think it will be good for the conversation, if African people were to find these historical figures who fought against the transatlantic slave trade and talked about them more. Because right now, African Americans, we only know one thing because the white man has told several of the Africans. We just know that we was in Africa, and there were some Africans that participated and made sure that white people had us. Remember, a European has never defeated an African. A European has always contracted another African to defeat another African. When the Europeans brought their armies into Africa, they were getting crushed by the local population. But what they do? They went and just found another African nation that was getting beat up by another African nation, and they just armed that African nation to fight that bigger African nation. The same way we are currently right now trying to arm militia groups to fight Iran, to destabilize the country. If you pay attention to the present, you will understand the past. Right? Because the tactics of the European is exactly the same thing, even though they name it different things and they put official titles on it or whatever. But all in all, you guys need to understand America belongs to us. And African Americans have all intentions of taking this whole country for ourselves. And we would like our African brothers and sisters and our Caribbean brothers and sisters. Caribbeans are already with us. Like, they're already there. Like I said, them Caribbeans ain't nothing but South Florida. Florida is, right? We need to take America, all of it. In order for us to do that, we got to be on the same page. We got to be on the same side of the battlefield. Because America is up for grabs. You got to understand, America is up for grabs. Shit, Europe is up for grabs. We're going to take that too. We're going to take all this shit, right? But the only way we're going to do it is to work together. We need the geniuses of the continental, of the African community, geniuses of the Latino, Afro-Latino, and Caribbean and African-American community to combine forces in various different sectors and take over as much as they possibly can. Business-wise, political-wise, local, state, all that shit. We need to take over all the apparatuses of control, but we can't do that if we're being undermined. You can't undermine the movement, because you undermine the movement that protects you. If you can't tell right now, white people, if given the opportunity, will go back to slavery. They would re-enslave us. Clearly, they're trying to kick all you guys out right now. They don't want you here. So you should understand who has been the one to create laws and policies to benefit you and who have not. Because white people are showing you that the reason why you're here ain't because of them. And if it was up to them, they would get you the hell up out of here. All right? And unfortunately, they have coerced some Africans to participate in wanting to get you up out of here. And they have used a sentiment that they have created, by the way, by creating an African that thinks less of African Americans and then articulates. They've created a situation where there are African Americans who are like, yeah, get these ungrateful ass Africans up out of here. Fuck them. They don't like me, fuck them. You got to understand how psyops work. And it's working, so to speak, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to clear that up. I don't know if anybody's pissed off at me saying, because I know a lot of y'all are, what you mean African Americans are this, that, nobody. It's the truth. Y'all got to stop letting your egos, right, stop you from absorbing information. There's a reason why African Americans are so influential. You can't take that from us. There's a reason why. And if you continue to disrespect that, just like if I were to come to your country and disrespect your country and your tribe in your country while using and benefiting from your resources, you feel a kind of way about it. All right. But luckily, there are people who are more mature, who are really trying to have the conversation in order to move it forward. Just instead of just fighting for the sake of fighting. And hopefully enough of us who want to move the conversation forward, there's enough of us to push further the policies that will benefit all of us, collectively. So I hope I articulate myself in a way that some of you Africans can understand how disrespectful you have probably been knowingly and unknowingly. All right? And like I said, y'all can't get too mad at me because y'all see I pump a lot of videos out holding my own ethnic group accountable. Not only do I hold my own ethnic group accountable, I hold my whole nation accountable. You see me talking about white people in America. You know why? Because we are the same nationality. Therefore, I hold them accountable. That's why I talk about them the way I do. You see me talk about these POCs in America because they're my nationality. So I got the right to talk about the people in my nationality, the people that make up the United States of America, and say, what are you doing wrong? And that's always what African Americans have done. All right? And like another thing I don't like before I wrap this up, there are some Africans who are malicious and jealous of African Americans. Because of that, right? And no, I always try to do this. Obviously, there are African Americans who are malicious towards Africans, right? But you got people who are so blinded in their hate towards their own people that they'll make propaganda that the white people could never make. Making fun of the educational system in America because you want to hurt black people because they pissed you off. Right? That's a double-edged sword, because if you make fun of the lack of education in America, now keep in mind, despite the lack of education in America, right? Despite the problems that we have here as far as our education, some of our boys can't even read. Some of our girls can't even read, and they're getting pushed to school. We always knew as African Americans that's an issue because of the lack of resources being placed in our communities by the government ran by white people. You get what I'm saying? While they take all our tax money and sift it to those white institutions. So if you're African and you don't understand that, and you make fun of African Americans for having issues with the educational system, and you think because you're smart African who came over here that you're superior than us, then let's turn around and look at your country that you came from. And let's look at the education there. Let's look at all the children that are in Africa right now that are not in school, who can't read. And you tell me with a straight face that you want to compare apples to apples when it comes to education. African Americans to continental Africans. You tell me with a straight face that you think you can attack African Americans for the situations that we are continuously placed in. As far as our education, you telling me you can compare that with the situation going on in Africa with African countries ran by African people, where you got millions of children who are not in school at all, out here hawking, working on the street, selling fruits and bananas and plantains on the road when they should be in school. You can't do that. You cannot do that. Because if an African American were to get offended by being attacked for a truth because it was delivered in a malicious way, then they will in turn attack an African for a truth, and it will be delivered in a malicious way, and then here we go back and forth again, hurting each other. Right? Instead of saying the reason why African Americans, and not just African Americans, but all Americans that are not in the upper class, including most white Americans, have a terrible educational system, because the educational system here is not built to educate, it's built to create drones. And then we could talk about in Africa how your corrupt politicians rather put money in their pockets and send their kids to our universities instead of building universities in your countries. Same way, your politicians rather come to our hospitals instead of building the hospitals, world-class hospitals in your countries. Because your politicians rather buy big-ass houses in my country instead of developing communities in your country for regular people to be able to live. Because your people come to America and work for the top corporations and use all that African talent to build up a white corporation instead of going back to Africa and building up African corporation with that same talent, the same way the Chinese do when they go back to China and build up their country. We could talk about this all day long, because every one of us is doing some effed up stuff. All of us can improve on the things that we do. And all of us have things that we can all criticize continuously all the time. But if we ain't having conversations to solve the problem, what are we doing? We just hurting each other for the sake of hurting each other, while white people get to be lazy and sit back and watch us hurt each other? Is that the case? So yeah, we're gonna have to elevate this conversation, man. Because I swear, the diaspora war is tiresome. We need to all be lined up in fighting the enemy. We all need to be beating the same drum, all of us, right? But in order for us to do that, cooler heads need to prevail. Maturity needs to take over from immaturity, and we have to educate ourselves. People need to become more educated, because if you are more educated, you can have a more educated conversation. If you're not educated, all you're going to do is attack. The indicator of somebody who's stupid is someone who starts an argument talking shit, or somebody who rebuttals a good point by just talking shit, or somebody that goes out their way to just talk shit for the sake of talking shit. That's a sign of a lack of intelligence. And a degree doesn't mean that you're an intelligent. I just want to know. Just because you have a degree don't mean you're a smart person. There's a lot of dumbasses with degrees. There's a lot of dumbasses with masters and PhDs and all that. That doesn't mean anything. That meant that you could take a test and you were able to write a halfway decent thesis, a halfway decent essay paper. You got it done. That's it. That doesn't mean that you are worldly and that you understand what's going on in geopolitics and all that. That doesn't mean you understand any of that stuff. So there's always room for education to improve what it is you know, so that you can have a better better analyze, you know, the situations on the ground and have better conversations that are meaningful and get somewhere. Right? Anyway, you guys tell me what you think about this in the comment section. This is Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.
I'm so pro-black, you can't get me to involve myself in diaspora wars. I'm every nigga on this earth. I'm African, I'm Caribbean, I'm Afro-Latina, I'm Afro-European. If you're a nigga, I am you, you are me. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. You're me, you're me, I'm you. I don't know.
Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan!
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.